Hi, everyone. Happy week. It's Wednesday, and we are starting a little bit late this week. I hope you had a really good week and that you enjoyed the past couple of days off. Um, we got a message today that said that we will not be coming back to school for the rest of the school year, and I cannot tell you just how sad this makes me and how much I will miss you, and how much I already miss you. However, I am so grateful that I get to still share amazing stories with you and touch base even for a little bit, and that I have been so lucky to hear from so many of my friends this week. So before we get started with our book, if you would like to send me an email, please do so. It's alibel@douglasps.net. I would love to hear how you're doing, what's been going on with you, what you think about our story front desk. This week, I have heard, it was so nice to hear from Peter in fifth grade, Emilio in fourth grade, Riley in fifth grade, Catalina in fifth grade, and Ayla again in fifth grade. So if you would like to send me an email and tell me how you're doing, I would love to hear from you. We are still reading our book. It's Front Desk. We are on chapter 7. I will read 2 chapters tonight, um, or today rather. Well, it's Tuesday night. It's the night before you see this. Let's get started. Here we go. Chapter 7. I try not to think about stupid Mr. Yao and Jason the rest of the day, but it was extremely difficult. How could they just change the terms on us like that? Now, whenever a customer returned the key, instead of getting $5, we were getting hardly anything. I counted the keys in my hand. There were 8 there. I knew I had checked in 12 people yesterday. The other keys must be still in the rooms. I hopped off the stool and went out the back to investigate. I found 3 of the keys in the rooms. The customer just left them and went on their way, but I could not find the key to room 9. I looked everywhere, but there was absolutely no key in the room, and the customer was long gone. Did they accidentally take the key? I walked over to the laundry room where my parents were washing the towels and sheets. It was this big room way in the back of the motel, which had an industrial washing machine and dryer that ran 24/7 and made this awful grinding sound like it was drying metal screws and not sheets. Over the noise, I could hear my parents talking. Please, sir, we still really want the job. My mom mimicked my dad. Why didn't you just kneel before him? Fine. You want to quit? Let's quit, my dad said. Let's call him right now and quit. You know we can't quit, my mom said. Mia's starting school tomorrow. At the sound of my name, I thought about turning around and leaving. I hated hearing my parents argue. They hadn't really done it in China, but ever since we came to America, it was getting harder and harder to avoid. I cleared my throat. Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Mia, my dad said. Spinning around, he tried to look happy, like he hadn't just been fighting. We were just talking, he said. I wanted to say to them, it's okay, you argue sometimes. I get it. Room 9 left, but he didn't leave his key, I told them. What should I do? Wait, so there's no key? Well, there's the master key, I reminded them, but I can't give that out. All right, let me see what we can do, my mom said. My mom followed me out of the laundry room. When we got back to the front desk, we opened up all the cabinets. We eventually found a white box buried in the back of a drawer with the word official spare keys in permanent marker. My mom took the box out and opened it. Sure enough, there were 30 official spare keys inside, one for each room. Here's the one for room 9, I said, picking up it and clutching it in my hand. Great, my mom said. I was about to hang the key on its little hook next to all the other keys when it occurred to me we couldn't give this key out. This was our only spare key. What if someone took it? My mom sighed. We had no choice but to call Mr. Yao. As my mom explained the situation to him over the phone, I tried to squeeze in next to her to hear. What's he saying? I asked, but my mom just shook her head. I went over to my room and picked up the extension just in time to hear Mr. Yao exclaim, What kind of idiot doesn't charge a deposit on the key? That would be me. For the record, I didn't charge a deposit on the keys because, well, who charges a deposit on keys? Deposits were for renting bikes and cars. Why would anyone want to steal a key? Mr. Yao told my mom we had to make a new key with a key machine underneath the front desk. My mom and I knelt down to look for it. We finally found it in the back. It wasn't actually much of a machine, more like an assortment of blank keys, needles, pins, and files with a big metal thing to keep the key in place as you worked on it. Leave it, my mom said. After I finished cleaning all the rooms, I'll make the key. Until then, don't touch it, okay? Do not try to make it. I nodded and waited until she went out the back. Any adult who says the word don't touch it to a kid should know it's open invitation to touch it. I accepted my mom's invitation and picked up one of the blank keys. Holding it up to the spare room 9 key with all its little ridges and valleys, I wondered, were we supposed to file the ridges and valleys? Was this how it worked? I gently ran the file against the blank key. To my surprise, it made a little dent. I ran the file again. Another dent. Hey, this wasn't so bad. I didn't even need the metal thing to clamp down the key. I could do it just by holding the key. I filed and filed. With each new dent, I sang, "Look at me, I'm making a key." I was having so much fun that I forgot to look at where I was filing and accidentally filed my finger. "Ow!" I cried. I dropped the file and the key and held up my throbbing finger. The skin of my index finger had been rubbed raw and it was bleeding. I ran to the bathroom to get a band-aid, but there weren't any, so I took some toilet paper and wrapped it around my finger. The toilet paper turned bright red in seconds. I grabbed more toilet paper and held it to the wound, even though it hurt like crazy. Eventually, the bleeding stopped. I wrapped the toilet paper in scotch tape around and around. With my tiny mummy finger all set, I sat back down at the front desk and glanced at my unfinished key. I should have stopped right there. I should have put the key away and waited for my mom. That would have been the sensible thing to do. But I had this thing where if I started something, I had to finish it. It didn't matter what it was, books, Chinese, chess, or the last strawberry on the candied skewer I used to eat back home. When I started something, I finished it. And so I picked up the blank key again with my gigantic finger held high out of the way. I started filing. 10 minutes later, I was done. It wasn't perfect, I'll admit it, and it wasn't pretty by any standard, but when I held the spare to the blank, it had all the same ridges and valleys. As I stood back to admire my creation, a customer came in. "Got any rooms in the back?" he asked. I did indeed, and proudly handed him my new key. "What the hell?" said the customer, ringing the office a couple of minutes later. "The key you gave me doesn't work." As it turned out, though I had filed the ridges to perfection, I had forgotten to smooth out the edges, so when the customer put the key in, it got stuck. I rushed out the back to help him. We pushed and pulled. Finally, we managed to jam it into the doorknob and unlock the room. When the customer laid eyes on the room, his face fell. Sorry, guys, that was my computer. Let's see. When the customer laid his eyes on the room, his face fell. "This is a lot smaller than what I was expecting," he said. I looked around the room. There was a bed, a dresser, television, small table and chair. It was modest, sure, but what else did he need? "Why don't you get settled in and I'll come back in 10 minutes and I'll give you a new key," I asked. Mr. Lewis looked like he wasn't sure about the room and the whole stuck key thing, so I threw in, "And I'll bring you a free soda. How's that?" He perked up and said okay. As I walked back to the front desk, I shook my head. Why was it that everything in America had to do with money? People wouldn't give you back your key unless you charged them a deposit. They'd hold a simple mistake over your head unless you gave them a free soda. At my old school in China, there was this kind of elderly man who lived near the building. Every day he'd give me a popsicle on my way home in exchange for telling him what I learned in school that day. That was it. No money, no credit card, just, "Hey, how was school?" I sighed. I missed popsicle, Grandpa. There was no one like that here. Here, everything had a price, even kindness. No sooner had I gotten back to the front office than Mr. Lewis called me back to his room. Come back, right now," he said into the phone. From the urgency in his voice, I thought it was a real emergency. Had the smoke alarm gone off? Did the television explode? I rushed back to room 9 and found Mr. Lewis standing in the bathroom staring at the trash can. Did you see that? He asked, pointing at the small plastic trash can under the sink in the bathroom. I stared into the black bin. I couldn't see anything. See what? That, he shouted. He picked up the trash can and shoved it in my face. I squinted into the darkness and saw what appeared to be a single long string. It looked like dental floss. You see it? Mr. Lewis asked. Yes, I see it now, I said. This room has not been properly cleaned, Mr. Lewis said. I assure you it has. Clearly it hasn't, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would like another room, a bigger room. Sir, all our rooms are the same size. Mr. Lewis crossed his arms and said, I don't believe you. I would like you to open up every single room and I will pick one for myself. That's when I lost it. Maybe it was my throbbing finger on the 2 refunds, Mr. Yao, changing the deal, but I couldn't control myself. Sir, that's ridiculous. You can't pick your own room. This isn't a salad bar. As soon as I said the words, I knew I had gone too far, but it was too late to snatch them back. Well, Mr. Lewis said, fuming, if that's the way it's going to be, then I would like a refund. No, please, Mr. Lewis, I pleaded with him. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that thing about the salad bar. I don't know why I said that. I squeezed my eyes shut and confessed, I've never actually been to a salad bar. I've only seen them on TV. Mr. Lewis looked shocked. You've never been to a salad bar? I shook my head. His eyes softened. Why are you doing this? He asked me. Shouldn't you be out playing? I looked away from him. Why were Americans always asking kids to go out and play? In China, kids almost never played. They had to sit for exams and starting at an early age. Except for family get-togethers, every minute after school was packed with homework, drilling, revision, and dictation. When I went to first grade in China, I got only 2 minutes a day to play. That's literally what it said on the schedule I made for myself. 5 to 5:02 play. I wanted to say to Mr. Lewis that I'd never really played and I didn't intend to start now. The other part of me wanted to say, this is playing. I got to run a motel. Was there anything better than that? In the end, I simply said, I like my job very much. Mr. Lewis looked slightly embarrassed and said, Of course you do. I'm sorry. He looked around the room once more. You know what? This will do just fine, he said. Really? I asked. I could not believe my ears, and I'm sorry I gave you such a hard time. Here, let me empty that for you, I said, taking the trash out from his hands. I went outside, quickly emptied the can in the dumpster, and placed it back in Mr. Lewis's bathroom. Is there anything I can do to make your stay more pleasant? I asked him. Mr. Lewis thought for a second, then he held up a finger and announced, Pillows. Pillows? Yes, I need 4 pillows, 2 for under my head, 1 for between my legs, and 1 to hug. I smiled. Done. Chapter 8. Who knew that something so basic, pillows, could make someone so happy? After getting Mr. Lewis his pillows and a new key, I went back to the front desk and cut up a bunch of blank cards. I had decided to make customer feedback cards. This way, every customer would let us know exactly what they wanted. Whether it was extra pillows or extra toilet paper, I put the cards out at the front desk. The next morning, Mr. Lewis took one of my customer feedback cards and scribbled away. For a long while, I sat and stared at the card, afraid to turn it over. For a long while, I sat and stared at the card, afraid to turn it over. Even though he had been nice in the end, I still worried about what it might say. When I finally did turn it over, I braced myself for picky comments regarding, the cleanliness of our room or the softness of our pillows. Never in a million years did I expect to read this message. Helpful, Steph. There was no greater feeling in the world than reading those words. A smile stretched across my face as I got ready for school. I decided to wear my blue and red shirt and polka dot leggings on my first day. When I was all set, I said goodbye to my parents and carried my backpack down 4 blocks on Meadow Lane. Unlike Coast Boulevard, which was busy and chaotic, Meadow Lane was lined with houses, all the green lawns and mailboxes with little red flags. Still, there were no signs that this was completely a nice neighborhood, like metal bars on some of the windows and bikes left outside with only the frame left and no wheels. As I walked, I gave the butterflies in my stomach their usual pep talk. It's going to be okay, I'll make friends, and if I don't, I'll borrow books from the library. This year, there was an additional butterfly. I finally had something cool to tell everyone. I was running a motel. This was sure to blow their minds. The walls of Dale Elementary School were pink and green. On the pink and green walls, There hung a big welcome back banner, and all around me kids were scurrying off the bus and into the classrooms. Principal Evans said I was to go to room 12. As I pushed open the pale green door to my new classroom, a room full of kids turned to look at me. A tall woman with red hair and big earrings spun around and waved. You must be Mia, the teacher said. I nodded. Welcome. I'm Mrs. Douglas, she said. Please take a seat. I looked around the room. The seats in the back were already taken, and I didn't want to sit in the front. The other kids peered curiously at me. They were mostly white, but there were also a few black kids and Hispanic kids, no Asians. I took a seat in the middle of the room next to the empty desk and a poster on the wall that said, Wanted, children who love reading. As more kids piled in, Mrs. Douglas asked us to go around the room and tell everyone something about ourselves. Doesn't have to be big, she said, just has to be something interesting. Can it be weird? Someone asked. Mrs. Douglas's eyes opened wide. I love weird, she exclaimed. We went in alphabetical order, so Alan Adelman had to go first. I watched as he agonized over something sufficiently weird. He finally went with, I collect things. Excuse me, what kinds of things? The other kids asked. Rocks, keychains, he said. My new classmates yawned. Not weird. Bottle caps, postcards too, still not weird. And fingernails, Alan quickly added. All my old clippings. Whoops, too weird. Alan immediately put his hand over his mouth, but it was too late. The other kids stared at him like he was a crow. Alan shriveled under their gaze. Next came Bethany Brett, who looked like she had about 15 something specials about her and couldn't wait to get started. She told us all about her golf game and how she went to this fancy ice skating camp this summer. Now I can do jumps and twirls and everything, she bragged. Mrs. Douglas beamed at her, clapping her hands wildly, and we all knew who was going to be teacher's pet this year. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. Here goes. Hi, I'm Mia. I live and work in a I was just about to say motel when the door swung open. Sorry I'm late, a voice boomed. I turned around, walking through the door with his shirt half tucked into his pants, looking like he just woke up, was Jason Yao. So, Mia, what were you going to say? Mrs. Douglas asked. Nothing, I muttered. I couldn't believe it. What were the chances of Jason being in the same school, let alone the same class as me? Not only was Jason here, but because he was late, he had to take the only empty desk left, which was right next to mine. Great. You are about to tell us something. You live and work in a. Jason shot me a look. I don't you dare look. Heat rushed to my cheeks and to Jason's. Why didn't you want me to tell the others to know? Nothing. Just a normal house, I quickly lied. With a dog. What kind of dog? The other kids were curious. A golden retriever. It was the only kind of dog I knew. What color? Golden? I tried. The other kids nodded, satisfied with this information. I let out a sigh of relief. Excuse me, as Mrs. Douglas moved on to the next person. While my least favorite person in the world. Oh, excuse me, guys. Ooh, I didn't have such a good night last night. Anyway, my least favorite person in the world sat in his seat, glaring at me. Jason marched up to me at recess. Let's make one thing clear, Jason said. You don't know me and I don't know you. Got it? Whatever, I said. Jason turned and walked away. What was that all about? Was he bothering you? Someone asked. It was a girl from my class who had walked over. Guadalupe Garcia, I think her name was, or Lupe for short. No, I said quickly. Lupe looked like she didn't believe me. A little, I admitted. Jason can be so annoying, she said, shaking her head. I smiled. Hey, what happened to your finger? Lupe asked, pointing. I'd taken the toilet paper off and replaced it with proper band-aid my mom gave me, along with an earful and how I should have waited for her. Nothing, I said, hiding the wound with my thumb. So you have a golden retriever? Lupe asked. I nodded slowly. Lupe smiled. Me too. Lupe went on to tell me that on top of the golden retriever she had two other dogs, a pug and a Shiba Inu. Shibas are the hardest to train because they're so smart, she informed me. I nodded politely and concurred that training was very important. She asked me what my dog's name was, and I blurted Sanjay because I was still thinking about Jason, and Sanjay was Jason flipped around. It just came out. Sanjay, really? Lupe said. That's an unusual name. I quickly tried to change the subject. So what do you do this summer? I asked. Lupe told me all about her awesome summer and how her parents brought her bought her this giant trampoline. It was in her backyard and she recently did a flip, but her dad wasn't there to see it because he had to go on a business trip. I couldn't stop staring at her. This girl with a house, a trampoline, and 3 dogs. She sounded so normal. She asked me if I had a trampoline. No, I said. Then my face brightened. But I have a pool. A pool? She gasped, her eyes opening wide. That's amazing. It is pretty amazing, I told her. I didn't tell her the part how I wasn't allowed to go in it. Just look at it. Toward the end of recess, I left Lupe to go check out the library. She wanted to come with me, but I told her I'd only be 5 minutes. I didn't want her to know what I wanted to look up, which was the price of an electronic key machine. My finger was still throbbing, and I wondered how much safer and easier and safer machine would cost. As I walked toward the library, I heard voices down a dark, empty corridor. It sounded like some kids fighting. I tiptoed closer to get a better look. From the shadows, I could make out 4 big kids. They looked like sixth graders, and they huddled around another kid. My breath stopped short when I saw the kid in the middle. It was Jason. Take that Chinese doughboy, the sixth grader taunted him. One of them had his hands on Jason's arms and was twisting it while the other boys were holding Jason back. Ow! Jason cried. That's what you get for being a know it all, the sixth grader said. Jason howled as they twisted his arm even harder. Stop! I yelled. The boys spun around and froze. One of the sixth graders smirked. Look, Chinese doughboy has a girlfriend, he exclaimed. My cheeks turned bright red. I'm not his girlfriend, I shot back. I'm not even his friend. And just then a teacher started walking over. Hey, what's going on? He hollered. Shoot, the sixth graders yelled. Quickly, they let go of Jason and scrambled out of there. After the sixth graders ran away, Jason and I walked silently back to the class. I kept looking over at the bruise developing on his arm. I wanted to ask him if he was okay, but then I thought about all the horrible things he and his dad said the other day, and I didn't. The end. All right, my friends. Next week we'll read a couple more chapters. Again, if you would like to send me an email, I would love to hear from you. I hope you have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Please go outside. Try to catch up with your friends. I miss you. Please wash your hands. I miss our library. I miss our time together. I hope you're getting to read something good. If you're reading something good that you really love and would love to recommend, I will add it to our list of books that we might be able to purchase at the library. We'll see. Anyway, take care of yourselves. I will see you next week. Goodbye, guys.